Hey, welcome to the Ear Mob Podcast. This is a Sunday edition. Tonight, we are going to be talking about high strangeness in West Virginia. Les Odell's going to join us, and he's going to be talking to us about his experiences out hunting for Bigfoot and just in general trampling all over West Virginia and finding all kinds of stuff out there. What's really cool is Les takes his kids out with him, and he posts videos all the time of him taking out his 8-year-old son. So I got to thank Les for that. That's like Father of the Year material right there. It's really cool to get the boy out there running around in the woods of West Virginia, exploring caves, abandoned buildings, all kinds of crazy stuff out there, and keeping him off the electronics. Les has a YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel he has is WV Cryptids and Strange Encounters. He currently has over 100 videos up, and you name it, he's talking about legends of West Virginia. He's interviewing people who've had encounters with Bigfoot. He's got videos out exploring some of these places out there, exploring places where there's been Bigfoot encounters in the past. He's got videos of tree structures, him casting prints with his boy, you name it. Les is killer. He's the real deal. So I'm going to welcome at this point Les to the Ear Mob Podcast. Hey Les, thanks for joining me, bro.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So you've got this YouTube channel, and you're killing it. I know how tough it is to get subscribers to channels on YouTube. I think I currently have 14. Just because YouTube's such a tough nut to crack, you know, and you seem to be doing it. I mean, you've got over 4,000 subscribers currently,
yeah,
and you've got 131 videos on there currently. You're doing. I know we had scheduled something for last week, but you had, I believe, you were doing a talk at a local library or something.
Yes, yeah.
So that's cool. How'd that go for you?
I did really well. There was quite a few people showed up. It was when I first got asked to do it, I thought it was because they said it was for like a summer reading program. And I enjoy going to some of these libraries. I've talked to 4-H camps and Girl Scout camps. I talked to a youth group at a church. I enjoy talking to the younger kids and younger folks. And, you know, when they have an interest in it, it's fun to share and see their faces and share their stories with them. But I was surprised at how many actual adults showed up to the library this weekend. The coordinator for the little event, I guess you say, said that was probably the biggest crowd she's had for a lecture at that little library. So I was ecstatic. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. Isn't that a good feeling when you're,
yeah.
It's tough. I'm a musician, so I know sometimes it is tough to go up on stage in front of people. And I mean, you're essentially bearing your soul to these people and talking about something or playing music or whatever, and hoping that these people are into it. And it sounds like it went over great the way you describe it. And I mean, were there a lot of kids there?
There was, I'm gonna say probably, because there was probably about 30 or 40 people there, maybe. Nice. And I'm gonna say probably 15 or so of those, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood were kids, 15 to 20.
Nice.
Well, probably about 15, about half or a little bit somewhere in there.
Nice. And did the kids, I mean, obviously they seemed excited about it. Do you think that they were there? I mean, do you think that you're talking to the next generation of the people that are going to be going out into the wilderness and exploring and hoping to have an encounter with Bigfoot?
I'm hoping so. Yeah, there was 2 or 3. Well, let me think. 1, 2, 3. There was 4 young kids. 2 of them were probably in the teenage years that were really into it. They had some awesome questions, and when it came to question time, which whenever I do these little talks, I tell people, hey, you can ask me a question at any point. It doesn't have to be, at the end or whatnot. Anytime you want to ask a question, and they would. And I thought it was awesome that the young kids actually come forward. So.
Yeah, that's great, man. Anything to get these kids off so many kids these days seem to be tied to their devices, and they're just sitting there. It's summer break, and they're sitting there on their phone, or they're sitting there on their PlayStation, or sitting here on the computer, and they don't want to go outside. And I know that it's hot outside now, and West Virginia is probably pretty humid too. But
Hmm.
man, get them out there in the wilderness, and I think you might be sparking an interest in these kids, and that's a great service to get them out there and exploring. And you never know, one of these kids or one of these adults that came to see you might be the one to capture footage or
Right.
have that experience. So what got you started? Was it going to see somebody at a lecture, or was it like
No, no,
or,
no.
what,
I,
what
it all started with me as a kid when I had a paranormal experience, and that led me into having that curiosity of what I experienced. And so I'd start and looking. I started looking into other. Well, as a kid, I can't say I started researching, but I like to listen to stories, and I like to listen to or reading books that I can find, which were just a handful, like ghost story books and stuff like that. And there's two of them that we have in West Virginia that was written by an author. It's called and one's Coffin Hollow, one's called Telltale Lilac Bush, of a different story, ghost stories and stuff in the area. So I really got into those as a kid, and then eventually it led to me talking to people about ghosts and stuff like that and the paranormal experiences. And then eventually my oldest son, when his mother and I had split up, we were he'd come over every weekend, and we was always involved doing stuff together. And I said, what do you want to do this weekend? And he said, I'd like to go ghost hunting. So he's now 27. So that was back when he was like, well, close to Mason's age, between 8 and 10 years old. Uh, I said, okay. So I went and bought a camera, a couple I bought a little Sony Handycam. Well, first off, I bought the little cassette recorders, the little tiny ones. And then when we
right?
got into it a little bit deeper, after a couple months or so, I went and bought digital recorders, and I bought the little Sony Handycam. So we would go around and we investigate little graveyards or stuff like that, and it grew, and his interest grew, and then we decided, hey, it would be cool to start after a few years. I mean, he's like, it'll be. I think he was probably about 15, and we decided, well, it'd be cool to have a group, to start like a little paranormal investigating group. So we did that. Brought a couple people on, and had a couple people go back and forth here every so often. But we had two steady guys that would come with us, and we'd investigate some buildings. We'd go to some of the bigger locations, or we'd do some local haunts, or we'd done some residential areas or our residential homes. And so, yeah, it led from that to, you know, life, I guess you say, getting in the way with everybody. And so the band, the group kind of disbanded, we broke up or whatever you want to say. But my son and I still talked about a lot, and we still did a few things together. And well, after after a few more years, he said, "What do you think about Bigfoot?" And I'm like, well, I think it's a cool subject. Really never really got too deep into it. I know about the Patterson Gimlin film and the Boggy Creek Monster and stuff like that, but I've seen the films and the movie, but I just never thought about being here in West Virginia or anyplace else. So after a little bit of time, we through discussions, or that's when he told me. So, well, I've been listening to podcasts and stuff about it, and I was like, oh, cool. So I started listening to him, and after a little bit of time of doing that, our discussions grew, and then we're like, in a talk one day, we're like, wouldn't it be cool to have someplace here in West Virginia where people can come and share their stories, whether it's Bigfoot, ghosts, aliens, it didn't matter to me. So we started the West Virginia, Cryptids and Strange Encounters page, and it kind of was slow going at first. We started in, I think it was in October. It's been, was it been, we're going 7 or 8 years now.
Oh wow.
I think it's 8 years, 7 or 8. I'm trying to remember. But we had, by the time February come around of the following year, we had just a couple hundred people. I thought that's really cool. Facebook page got, it's grown to, to me, a pretty decent number.
Right.
And well, I would share different things on there. I'd share like story or monster of the day stories. I'd find something, related to West Virginia, or some kind of local lore stories or something like that. Well, I think it was in latter part of February, early part of March or something. I don't remember. It's been so long ago, but I shared this one little ghost story, I guess you'd say, from Huntington, West Virginia, about a lady in white, or whatever you want to call her. They called her the Fifth Street Ghost, and she supposedly, if you drove up this Fifth Street hill, you would see this lady along the road. Now there's a bunch. I mean, there's more to it, but the brass tacks of it, she would show up, she'd hitchhike. You pick her up, you take her to the top of the hill or whatever, and she'd disappear. She wouldn't be in your car. Well, I didn't realize that was like such a popular story. Well, it blew up. And it's still probably the biggest thing that's ever been shared on the page. It's got thousands of views or thousands of shares and whatever. I mean, it still makes, in every few months it makes its rounds again, and I keep seeing it. But because of that, it went from just a couple hundred people in February, March, until about April or so, maybe a month later, it went up to three to 4,000 people. And then I just kept growing. People would contact me and said, "Yeah, I've experienced this. I had ghost. This is a ghost story I would like to share with you." And people would send me messages, and before you know it, we're up to, I think it's just shy of 22,000 followers now on there, 19,000 and some likes or whatever you want to, whatever it is there. And but I shared one story about a Bigfoot creature, a legend. I think it was called I believe it was called the Greenbrier Cave Monster or something like that. I forget exactly what it was called, about a Bigfoot type creature living in caves down there. And people started sending me messages. They'd email me, or they'd hit me up on Messenger and say, "Hey, we've experienced one of these things in West Virginia." And I would talk to them. Then I'd either go back and forth through messengers, or I'd give them my phone number. I'd talk to them. And then some people I just talked for hours, just because they wanted to share the story. It had nothing to do about sharing on the page or anything, but they just needed somebody to talk to because they had an experience. So that led into people saying, "Hey, will you come check out my place, or come and check out this area," and things like that. And I started doing that, and I would go around, and next thing you know, I'm still doing it. Helped get the Bigfoot Museum started in Sutton, and things like that. And it's just become a cool thing for me to do, I guess you'd say. And then I got my youngest son involved in it, and he's really enjoying it.
That's great, man. You mentioned paranormal, and that's kind of how you got started. And it seems that's like a common thread with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, they have an experience when they're younger, and then that kind of opens their minds up to, what's out there that I can't explain, what's out there that I don't know about, and it pushes them into these other areas, whether it's ufology or,
Mm-hmm.
cryptozoology. And as far as the paranormal is concerned, is that still a part of what you do, or are you strictly just kind of, hey man, I'm into Bigfoot, and that's kind
No, I'll do it all. I'll do it all.
of, okay,
I,
okay,
I enjoy it all. I still probably like the paranormal side of stuff. When I get to do that, um, it's probably a bigger passion than Bigfoot. I mean, I really enjoy Bigfoot, talking to people, but as
right.
far as getting out there and the thrill of getting into a place and you know having something happen, I really like audio. I really like EVP stuff. Um, that's probably still my favorite thing to do. Uh,
Right.
I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but when I do, I enjoy it rather a lot.
Yeah, I can. And I do paranormal investigating from time to time myself, and I find that I don't get to do it as much as I want to.
Right.
And I'm located in southern Utah, so there's a big church presence here.
Hmm.
They kind of have a lot of stuff on lockdown, as far as, a lot of people don't want to talk about it openly.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find, unique places to investigate here, or get people that are open enough to have you come to their location or their home and investigate and find out what's going on. It just doesn't seem to happen as much here. And it's kind of a bummer, because, you talk about it and you almost get to the point where you don't want to talk about it, because, there's a lot of people here are so judgmental. about stuff like that, you know. So they don't want to acknowledge that that stuff's a reality,
Right.
you know. And if they can't explain it, they would just rather not talk about it,
Hmm.
you know. Or maybe it's just a there's a religious thing to it where they just like, oh, that can't be happening because our religion doesn't talk about it in that aspect. It doesn't account for something like that happening. So, and as far as Bigfoot is concerned down here, I don't see a lot of accounts of that because it's pretty much a desert here,
Right.
like high desert. So you don't see a lot of that. Maybe when you go up north, obviously, I know that Finding Bigfoot, one of their first episodes was up in northern Utah in Logan Canyon. There was some
Hmm.
footage there, you know, but I don't think there's much going on down here, which is kind of a drag. I'm from Vegas originally,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's really no Bigfoot going on in Vegas, but there's a lot of, unexplained activity in Vegas where, casinos with, Elvis
Right.
and the International Hotel, which turned into the Hilton, and so on and so forth. There's Elvis has been sighted. There's certain places out of town. You know, you've got Zach Bagans on Ghost Adventures has his museum there.
Right.
You know, so there's and people there. Obviously, it's Las Vegas, so people are just kind of a little more wild west, wide open to talk about stuff like that. So when you were growing up and you had your paranormal experience, might I ask what happened? I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but what happened?
Um, I was 8 years old,
Okay.
and we moved quite a bit. I lost. What happened? Did I
What
lose you? Oh,
Yeah, I
hold
can
on.
switch it back and forth. So
Okay, I thought I lost you. Um, I was 8 years old, and we moved around a good bit. I later found out why we did. It had to do with my dad being a Vietnam vet and going through PTSD and stuff, and there was a whole story with that. But we eventually at 8 years old landed in this old farmhouse. It was built in like the late 1800s, uh, kind of more of a single level farmhouse, but it had an upstairs, but it was that pitched upstairs. And well, anyway, when we first moved in there, I had the weirdest feeling that I was always, just that feeling of being watched all the time. And I had the feelings like when I walked by dark rooms that something was going to just yank me into rooms and just drag me in there, I guess. And well, after we was there for a little while, I would go to my room, and my brother and I shared bunk beds, and I would go to bed, and I was sleeping on the bottom bunk, and I would look across the room, like in the opposite corner, like diagonally across the room, and from that corner to the other wall behind our bed, these shadows would move. I could see these like I want to say more like blob shadows. There wasn't really uh, any shape to them. They were just like these shadows would move across the walls, and they were only about 2 feet tall or so. And I'd get scared to death, and I'd lay there and cover my head up, and I tried to scream for my dad, and for some reason I guess out of fear I just couldn't scream for my dad, and I'd fall asleep or I'd look and the shadows would be gone. Well, that happened a few times, and then one night I went to bed, and here I am hoping the shadows don't come back. Well, they did. They started moving across the walls again, but this time when I looked in a corner, I could actually see, um, I guess you say, a shadow person. This thing we had tall ceilings in the house, and this thing stood every bit probably 7 to 8 feet tall because the ceilings in the house was like I think they were 10 feet, and I could see the head, the shoulders, I could see like torso, and I could see the arms, but from about waist down, about where your waist would be, it was just like straight. There was no definition, no legs or anything like that. And again, I'd try to scream for my dad. I couldn't scream for him. Scared to death. Cover my head up. Eventually, go to sleep most of the time. Or if I'd look again, it'd be gone. Well, there was 3 times I remember this happening, distinctly 3 times. It may have happened a couple other times, but I don't remember for sure. But I do remember 3 times. On the third time that it had happened, I'm laying in bed. I'm hoping that this doesn't happen again. And again, I start seeing the shadows. And then I look and see this thing standing in the corner. Well, instead of covering my head up this time, I actually sat up and I like scooted back up against the like the headboard in the corner behind the headboard. And when I did, that thing that was standing in the corner went from watching what I assumed was watching the shadows all these other times. It went from looking and watching in the direction the shadows were going to looking at me. And within like a split second, it came from the corner, across the room, underneath the top bunk where my brother was sleeping, and leaned in and got between about 8 to 10 inches from my face, and was just right here, just like seemed like forever. To me, it seemed like forever.
Wow.
There was no features, there was no eyes, there was no nose, no mouth, no nothing, or no ears or anything like that. But I could see the head, the shadow, or head, the shoulders, and the arms. But the weirdest thing is you hear people talk about these shadow figures being like blacker and black, and they almost look like a cutout. Well, this thing had shape, and it was extremely dark. But the substance, mass, or whatever was inside this thing wasn't solid. It moved. You could see it moving around, and I remember looking at it and just terrified, and then it eventually just backed up, turned to its left, went through the doorway, and was gone. And all these years I've thought, well, maybe I'm the only one that's ever experienced that, because I've never heard anybody else talk about a shadow figure doing that. Well, within the past year, me getting forward or coming forward, talking on podcasts or some of these talks, you're not going to do a library talk like this last one. I've had 2 people come forward and say, yeah, they've seen the exact same thing, and it did the inside or whatever. I call it looking like smoke rolling around, like black smoke, and they said it was exactly the same thing. And the woman that I just talked to at this library talk says that it's actually still ongoing in her house, that they see this thing.
Wow. I've heard of people seeing shadow figures, but what I always understood about shadow figures was that people would see them out of the corner of their eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as their brain would acknowledge that they saw something and they would turn your head, it would be gone just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't recall ever having an experience growing up of seeing anything like a shadow person in my room or anything. The thing that I remember as a kid was, and this was like when I was 3 or 4 or 5, I would just have this and I don't know if it was a dream, I don't know what it was, but I would have this reoccurring dream that I was in the hallway and there was something rushing down the hallway at me. Mm-hmm. And as soon as it would get to me, I would wake up or it would disappear. And again, I was, it's tough to remember things when you're 3 and 4 at
right.
this. But I don't think I was awake. I think it was more of a dream, but it was something that happened quite often.
Right.
And then there was one other instance when I was a kid that I can't explain. I was sleeping on the couch and I felt something sit down on the couch. And when it sat down on the edge of the cushion actually compressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the strangest thing I remember as a kid. But I was always fascinated with, reading books on, I think a big part of it was In Search of, obviously, with Leonard Nimoy, but, reading books and In Search of, and I mean, it was always, UFOs and Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and ghosts. But it wasn't until like Ghost Hunters came out on TV, myself, just like, thousands of other people, decided, hey, that's what I want to do. That's it looks like fun, but it's also very interesting. And I'd like to have those experiences. And I know that a lot of people that do stuff like that, they're more in it for the thrill.
Mm-hmm.
and not so much for helping somebody or trying to find out what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
And the people, how do you feel about the people that are in it just for the thrill of it?
Uh, I think it's okay if they go to like a, I'd say pay for fun location, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Or if you go do what we used to call a hobby hunt, where we just go to like a local cemetery, or we have a local tunnel here that they talk about being haunted. That's fine. You know, that's the cool. There's a coolness to it. That's to me, that's fine to do it like that. But if you're going to someone's home or business or something like that, it's not cool. I mean, you're taking a responsibility to help somebody that's needing help, and if you don't want to do that, then you shouldn't be you're doing it in that regards. Um, but I've done several residentials, and I've done a few of those on my own. You know, I would go on my own, but just because I knew what I was there to do and how I wanted to do it. Um, not that my son was that way. It just this was like kind of after everything started to fall apart with the group, and that was part of the reason why the group fell apart a little bit, is because they didn't want to put in the effort to do the work. They wanted to have the fun at it, but when it came to doing the rest of it, review and stuff like that, they just like kind of didn't want to do it. So I started doing some things on my own, and I did a few residentials on my own, and I did my best to help people, to help try to find answers. And if I couldn't, find those answers, I tried to have people around me that I could contact to, at least help me or help that family or individual, whatever it was.
Right. Yeah, and I've for me, obviously, you mentioned reviewing footage and listening to audio. For me, that's always the toughest part.
Hmm.
Like that's the part that I mean, I don't think you can. I've yet to meet a paranormal investigator that's like, oh man, that's what I live for. Is
Oh,
sitting.
I love audio. I love
Oh,
audio.
okay.
Yeah.
But like sitting there watching video and stuff like audio, you can put on and you can kind of
Yeah.
do things as you're listening to it. And if you hear something after a while, your ears get tuned to it and you'll pick it out.
Right.
You know, and that. How are you with the equipment? For me, I went from buying cameras and EMF detectors to now I just want to carry around one audio recorder.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I'm
I,
so
I,
sick of carrying around equipment.
I was never a big fan of a bunch of equipment. I would just have your standard recorders. I'd carry a digital camera, or I had the little Sony handy cam. I had two of those. Um, as far as like, I never had like uh, what was the REM pods or anything like that. I never had those. To me, it just took away from your attention to what could be happening. If
Right.
you had maybe a one little piece of equipment that you can do that with, that's fine. But to me, if you started putting in multiple pieces, you were paying attention more to the equipment. And then if you really got into it and started doing your homework or whatever you'd say, you'd find that some of those equipment would affect another piece of equipment. I kind of got away from. I mean, I didn't never got into it real deep. I did at one time start making my own little like static detectors, things like that. I'd use little things that could be a trigger object, and I'd put this little static detector together, and whether it was in a little car, whether it was in a toy, or whether it was in something that might have been related to the case that we was there for, something like that. I put it together and did that for a little bit, but most of the time, I did it. It was either you know I didn't even have a K2. I really never got into K2 because I know you know basically a K2 is pretty sensitive. Cell phones will set them off. Some other electrical devices will set them off. A lot of people don't realize that sometimes, like high static, like carpets or furniture, will set these things off. So I do have one now, but I use it in a way that I hope doesn't get a false reading.
Right.
Uh, but I normally would just have a recorder. I'd have a camera. I have a digital camera to take pictures, and I like to use dowsing rods. A lot of people don't like like poo poo on dowsing rods. I've had some pretty interesting stuff. That, in my opinion, coming from dowsing rods, and the way that I use them. It seems like I'll get answers where I can get them to. A lot of times, the way I use those is, when I'm talking to whatever might be in this location, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm using. Many many generations know what dowsing rods are. They go back a long time. A lot of these places that might have spirits in from like 1900s have no idea what a recorder is, and have no idea what an EMF detector is, but they know what those dowsing rods are. They know what, a lot of people know they can use water for water witching or whatever. And I'll explain, hey, this is something that you may be familiar with. I would like to use these to communicate with you. And I would do it in two different ways. I'd ask, and it's kind of hard to do a yes or no question with them, but if they don't cross them, it's kind of weird. You take it as a no, but normally what I'd try to use them as a locator. Show me something, show me where you're at, show me, and when I ask it a question like for a yes, show me why this would be a yes, something like that. And I've got pretty decent results, and I really enjoy using them. Like I said, but some people just don't dig them, but I do.
Well, I think everybody kind of has their own piece of equipment that they, it just that piece of equipment speaks to them.
Yeah.
And you brought up Sony Handycams, and I've spent money and got the new 4K, night vision full spectrum camera.
Yeah.
And I've got the old just standard definition Sony Handycam with the night shot.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that Sony camera still outperforms every other camera I've ever had. Right.
This one right here.
And I've got something similar to that.
Yeah.
With the big brick battery on the back and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, the Sony cameras still outperform every other camera you can buy on Amazon and spend $300-$400. That Sony camera I've had for almost 20 years, and it's rock solid.
That one,
never had a problem with it.
I bought that one and then got the big battery. That battery will last like several hours.
Right.
I got a new 4K camera with the batteries that come with it. I get 15 to 20 minutes on it. I'm like,
yeah,
that's horrible. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the camera that I bought it off of Amazon, and the batteries, I had to go buy, I think I have 6 batteries for it.
Yeah.
I had to go buy a bunch of extra batteries because the batteries don't last for like you said, 15, 20, 30 minutes tops. Yep. You're swapping a battery. And for some reason, this camera will freeze up. So you'll be filming and everything's working, but it's frozen.
Right.
And, you don't notice it. It doesn't ding. It doesn't do anything. So I'd much rather take all my good lights that I have, all my, IR lights, put them on my Sony camera. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not high def, who cares? That's the one that works.
It does work. Yep. I enjoy using it a lot more.
Right. But then again, I'm to the point now where I don't want to carry everything around. So if I could mount it on my shoulder, and walk around with it, I'd be much happier. I hate carrying equipment around, and I've had my share of experiences, and, I've never seen a full body apparition. I've seen, like at the end of a hallway, I've seen a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then I run down the hallway and there's no dog there. There's, the only exit would have been back past me and there's nothing there. But I saw it, and actually the guy that I was with at the time asked me, he's like, you were chasing that dog? So he saw it too, and there was nothing there. But that's the only time I've ever seen any type of apparition or anything like that. Never been punched, never been scratched. I don't recall if I've ever heard anything audibly out loud. A few EVPs here and there. I have a tough time with, like people on YouTube or people posting up on Facebook. A lot of people have claims of experiences. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got this EVP, or we heard this, but they never have, the evidence to back it up. And I know evidence is tough to come up with. I get it. But they never have evidence to back anything up. And, that's the tough part. You're out there and, out in the nowhere, middle of nowhere, looking for Bigfoot or just doing your thing. And I get it. You might hear some tree knocks or a howl, or you might hear some branches breaking or
Mhm.
that type of thing. I know evidence is tough in that aspect. What? How do you feel about these people that claim to have this evidence, but then when you ask them to present it, they don't. They just won't. So do you think they're being they're not being genuine with that, or do you think they're being private? I mean, what's the point of keeping it private?
Well, there are people that kind of keep things to themselves. They'll say they caught this or they've done that, and they don't want to share where they've caught it or how And that, I can understand that to a certain extent. Especially if it's has to do with maybe um, some privacy issues with maybe the landowner or something like that. But I have run into people like, yeah, I've had 15 sightings. Okay, I mean, explain to me how you've done that. Where was you at? And I've heard people say, well, we were here, and they might be in 15 different spots, and I'm like, and I just don't understand how that's possible, and then because I guess you'd have to be extremely lucky, or what the hell you're doing, I guess you'd say, to go to these spots and be able to have a sighting wherever you go.
Right,
Um, so it's kind of that's kind of rough for me to take sometimes, um, and especially when not because I've really not had really I can't say I've had a sighting really. I've had something that might have had a sighting or maybe had a sighting, but I've know other people that's been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years and has never seen anything. He
right,
has never seen a creature. But you'll have some of these guys out there, or I won't say guys and gals because it's just both that will come and say, yeah, we were in this area and we saw five of them, or in the past 10 years I've seen eight. I just don't see it, and there are people that will look down on me like that, me or other people like that to say that, but there are a lot of people that's right there in line with me or in line with others. Show us the proof. Show us. We can't just say you've seen it. Or show us why you say you've seen it. Where was it at? Where's the evidence to back that up? So yeah, I just find it sometimes that when people do that, it hurts the field some. But then you also have others that's really into the excitement of it. That's not necessarily investigators or researchers that would just eat that up. They just eat that up. And but you just got to handle it. Go with the flow of it and know who's, I guess maybe I call Uber believers. I guess you'd say. You know,
right,
and just like you know, and usually some of those people that are like that aren't that way because they want to be deceiving. I don't find that. What I find is at one time or another they had a genuine encounter. They seen something or they experienced something, and it has just consumed not only their um, how, I mean, it consumes them in a way like I say, just consumes their logic. Everything becomes a Bigfoot. Everything becomes Bigfoot structure or Bigfoot this or Bigfoot that, or everything that moves is a Bigfoot, even if it's a bird that flew by at the night and an owl flew by at nighttime, and all you see was the shadow go by, and it's Bigfoot. But it's just some people just don't dig into it deep enough and don't grasp the reality of what they're getting into. They just don't.
right. And I've investigated with people. I've never gone out looking for Bigfoot, and I've always wanted to. And Mark has extended the offer to me to get myself up to Washington and go up on Mount St. Helens and go to Ape Canyon, which is like that's like a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
But I've investigated with people in the past where it doesn't matter where you go. they've experienced something.
Right.
And for me, that's kind of tough for me to wrap my head around. I'm like, dude, there's no way that you just got shoved,
Yeah.
or there's no way that you just heard that I didn't hear it. Yeah, but I mean, that's possible. That that person heard it and I didn't. But that's the tough part for me. Like, I want to experience something, and I want to help people, and I want to have that thing happen to me, but I'm also skeptical in the back of my head.
You have to be.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be like if somebody says, "Oh man, it's cold over here. There's a cold spot over here."
Hmm.
I'm the guy climbing up in the rafters trying to find out if the air conditioner's on.
Right.
I'm the person that's doing that, and it's not that I don't believe that they're having an experience. For me, it's I got to find out exactly what's going on. And then if I can't explain it, then it seems a little more legit to me,
Right.
you know? And I know that, there's people that, and I got to hand it to them. There's people that go out, looking for Bigfoot, and they hear howls and they immediately go, oh, that's a
Hmm.
coyote or something like that. I'm like, well, thank you for, clearing that
Right.
up, because I don't know what it is. And I don't want to go, oh, I had heard of
Right.
Bigfoot. Then somebody else goes, dude, it was a coyote,
Yeah.
you know, which I'm okay with,
Right.
if I have evidence that I've presented before, but when I present it, I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Right.
Somebody tell me what's going on here. This is what I think, but it may not be that. Somebody tell me what's going on. And that's my way of going, hey, I am not going to present something as definitive when I can't prove that.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there that do that. And like you said, it kind of muddies up the field a little bit, and kind of takes a little bit of legitimacy out of a bunch of things.
Hmm.
And it's just really too sad, too damn bad and sad that people, they feel the need to be legitimized, like
Right.
they want to be the one, instead of going, hey, if I can solve one little piece of this puzzle, then that is my contribution to the whole thing. And that makes the whole field, whether it be paranormal or cryptozoological or ufology,
Right.
that lets it make it take a step forward, and that helps everybody,
Right.
you know? And that, for me, that's way more important than go, man, I caught this, closet door opening,
Right.
and that's what it is. But there was a draft in the house, and they know there's a draft in the house, but they're, you know, being a bullshit artist and telling
Right.
everybody it's something else.
Well, to me, one of the biggest things about being, see, I notice I don't consider myself a researcher. I really don't. As far, like Bigfoot, and because I don't have an area, I don't have a specimen or whatever you want, where I can sit and observe continuously.
Right.
I investigate when somebody calls me. I go out or I just go to areas where uh, sightings have occurred, or reported sightings have occurred, and I look around that area. But then I have at times where I talk to people that have had sightings, or they find things on their property. And in a lot of those cases, whether it's, whether it's the paranormal side, paranormal thing, or the Bigfoot stuff, to me, one of the most important things is not going in there and proving something to yourself. It's going into and educating those people that had that experience, or a possible experience, or what it might have been, what it maybe it's not. That, to me,
Exactly.
that's very important. Um, just for example, I got called out to a property here, probably. Oh, it's probably. I think trying to remember if it was before COVID or not. It's been at least 3 years ago. I know at least three. And the lady said she found tracks, like these tracks on her property, on and She said, would you like to come out and check the property out? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So me and my friend Daniel, we went to the property. And when we got there, she showed us what she thought was tracks. They very well could have been, you know, at one time, but they had been eroded, you know, over the past like few days. It had some rain and stuff, but there was still something there. And I was like, I said, I'm not really sure. I don't, you know, I can't tell for sure. You know, there's the the spacing is there that could possibly be, uh, the 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 way they're set, the way they're in line could possibly be, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I said I'm not going to say they are. And she goes, well, I really feel bad. You come out here and there was nothing. I said, no, that's you know, this is what we do. And she goes, I really wish I knew how to cast. You know, I would have casted them, you know, before you got here. So I took that opportunity. I was like, I got casting material in my vehicle. I said, let's cast what you found. I said, there may not be much there, but I said, let's cast what you found. And I did. I you know, instructed her how to cast and how to take measurements, how to take pictures, you know, how to, you know, everything, you know, about the two or three steps that she found. And I put that on Facebook to him, you know, this is what we were here. And because I asked her if I could share it. And I said, I use this as an educational moment. I had people really chew me out, rib me because I left those casts with her. They're like, why would you do that? I'm like, they're not mine. I didn't find them.
Right.
She found them. It's her property. It was actually her stepdad's property. That belongs to them. I was like, I did it as a teaching tool. So if she did find something else later on, she'd know what to do. But yeah, they're like, well, you should have kept them. You should have had that for proof. You should have had that for evidence. I was like, one, I don't know if it was evidence, you know, because it wasn't, there
Right.
wasn't definition there that I could clearly say, yep, that's a footprint. There was a shape, you know, eroded shape. And like I said, the spacing was there. You know, it could have been something, but why would I be that selfish and say, nope, I'm taking these with me? Yeah, no. And she was grateful, you know, she said, absolutely, you know, you can come back anytime, you know, you can stay on the property and things like that. That's what I think is important when you go to these folks' land is you don't go in like you're gung ho or you're like the man, you know, you go in respectful, you know, that's their property. You respect their wishes. Sometimes it takes a while when you talk to these folks to get anything out of them. And it's sometimes it's just because they're afraid. They're afraid of being ridiculed. You know, they're going to be, maybe they'll be embarrassed, and it takes a while. So it takes a little time. Sometimes maybe through messages, then through phone calls, and through meeting up and talking to them and getting that rapport built. And that's the same way I approached investigating the paranormal. I didn't go right in and say, yep, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going on. I would go in and talk to people or talk to them. And I, you know, and sometimes I'd do that two or three times before I ever go to a property. And recently, a guy in the southern part of West Virginia called me, said, I've got this going on. I've got this going on. And would you like to come down? I'm like, when I get a chance, yes, as soon as I get a chance, I'll come down. Well, he asked me a few times and I finally got the time to go. You know, it's 3.5 hours away, you know, with family and him work and everything. Sometimes it's rough. So I finally went down. As soon as I come on his property, he said, I'll take you here. You can see where where I've experienced it. You can look here, you can look there. I'm like, I don't want to.
Right.
He's like, why? He said, that's what I figure all you guys would do. You have to have you have to have you want to look for this evidence. You have to have this piece of evidence. I was like, no. I said, let's go to your picnic table here in the backyard. Let's sit down. Let's just chat. And I sat down and I said, do you mind if I record you? I said, that way I can fill out my report and talk to you, you know, and everything. He said, no. And I sat there for an hour and a half and just listened to this man talk. And then he's like, okay, what do you want to do? I said, nothing. I said, you feel better? He said, absolutely. I said, that's all that matters. Anything else happens, you call me.
Right.
Because he was grateful. He said, I just needed I said, you know, I'm here to listen. And he's like, you're right. He said, that's awesome. Because he said, I just needed somebody to listen to me. And then that, to me, that's a big part of doing this.
Right. Right. And I had brought up earlier, and this falls in line with what you were just talking about. I had brought up earlier how the location where I'm at, people are kind of closed-minded to it
Mhm.
because I almost think it's a little taboo for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and it doesn't fall in line with their religious beliefs. And it's just a shame that more people, there's people out there that want to talk about this, but they're almost shamed into not talking about it.
Right.
And I see your boy. Hey, what's
Yeah.
up right there in the background? What's up, pal?
Come here for a minute.
So, people are shamed into not talking about it.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Hey, buddy, while you're here, dude, let me play real quick so you can see this. So hang on one second here. Let me play that.
That's your footprint you found.
Where'd you get that?
That's a pic. He's got it on there. I sent it to him.
Oh.
That's your footprint in your cast. Huh? We did. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that cool?
Mhm.
All right.
Hey,
I got
good job, buddy. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. See, dude, father of the year, Les. Seriously, that's awesome. You're getting him out there, getting him running around out in the woods. He's learning his way around.
Talk to you in a minute,
Good
okay?
job, man. Good job. Whispering secrets.
I've got one. Okay. Please. Okay. All right.
All right.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job, bud.
All right. Love you. Love you. Love you. Go on.
He's not letting go, bro.
Go on. Hey.
That's a real deal right there.
Hey. Go on. Love you.
I got a 12-year-old grandson, and he wants to get into doing ghost hunting and stuff. And I don't feel like he's still just a little bit too young for it, but he wants to get involved in it. And let me give him a couple years, and we'll get him out there. But so then you're in West Virginia. Did you born in West Virginia? Did you grow up in West Virginia?
Yeah, born and raised. I've been here all my life.
Okay. So growing up, you've obviously heard some stories, about things going on in West Virginia and getting into it with the experiences you had. Obviously, you wanted to go out and check out some of these stories and go to these places. Have you found a story, a local legend or something like that you actually went out and found it to be true and had an experience that revolves around that legend?
Kind of like in the paranormal side, I have not really necessarily the Bigfoot related. I was talking about that tunnel earlier before we come along. There's always been reports of this tunnel is called the Silver Run, not Silver Run, sorry. Well, there's Silver Run Tunnel, and then there's Flinderation Tunnel. The Flinderation Tunnel, which also is called the Brandywine Tunnel, supposedly has activity. And what's neat about it is at one end of it, off to the top side of it, there's an actual cemetery above this tunnel. It's an old railroad tunnel, and there's always been stories about ghosts and the spirit, activity there. And I used to go there quite a bit, and I've actually had some interesting things happen there. We've heard things. We've caught EVPs. We've seen some odd lights in the tunnel. I've heard my name, said out loud. I was there with two other investigators, and my name just out of nowhere, not on a recording, but we audibly heard it. All three of us did. So that's probably one of the best examples would be that. And again, on the paranormal side, it would be probably Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. You hear about that. I've had some experiences there. Let me see. Droop Mountain. It's an old battlefield. I've had some interesting things happen there. Supposedly at nighttime you can see things that they say they're the ghosts of soldiers. It kind of reminds you like the Gettysburg thing where they'll see soldiers walking around. I believe I possibly maybe have seen a couple, apparitions there. But like I said, as far as Bigfoot stuff, not really. I mean, it's like there's legends. They're like the Polk Gap monster in the southern part of West Virginia, the Grafton monster, which a lot of people probably have heard about, which I believe at the time, or I believe now, that I think was most likely some type of Bigfoot creature that was seen. Then we have the town I grew up in. There was a one there they called the Grant Town Goon. I've never seen it. I just heard stories about it. Same way with the other two, but I've never caught anything or seen anything in either one of the areas. But I've taken reports from two of the areas.
Nice. So then, are there a lot of other people in your area that are interested in this stuff? That are like willing to go out there with you and invest stuff, or is it just kind of like you're like the guy?
I think there's more. I think it's kind of petered out a little bit, but there was more in the paranormal side. There was there for a while. There was a lot of people doing it, and I still have several friends that do it, that have groups and stuff. Bigfoot, on the other hand, there's a handful, not very many in the state of West Virginia. There's a handful. Well, let's put it this way: there's a handful that are publicly known,
Right.
but not many.
Right.
I do have some friends that are active in the BFRO, so that they're definitely out there taking reports. But yeah, as far as people in the public eye, there's a handful of us, not a bunch.
Right.
And I have a couple friends that go with me at times, but if Mason's not with me, it's usually my friend Tammy, or my friend Daniel used to go with me, or most of the time I'm by myself. I go into an area and I'm out there by myself.
Right.
And people are like, "Why would you do that? Why?" It's because I like it. I enjoy the solitude. I just like being out there by myself.
Right. And it clears your head a little
Right.
bit, I'm sure, and that was, for me, that was a big thing as well when I do the paranormal investigating. Is a lot of times I just want to go somewhere and sit down by myself.
Right.
It's like, hey, let me go in this area and sit there by myself, with my headphones on and my audio recorder, and just let me get a feel for this place. Let me, take in the energy of this location. Let me kind of tune myself into the location, so maybe I have a better chance of, making contact with something that is supposed to be there. Or I can go, I don't really feel anything,
Yeah.
And I'm not as sensitive by any means. My wife's a little more sensitive than I am. She's good to have along, but I just, like you said, you're out in the wilderness, you're breathing in the fresh air, it's nice out there, and you're exploring and you're in tune with the location, and you're out there. I mean, and you guys have bears and other, critters there in West Virginia. So obviously, when you're out there and about, you obviously have a sidearm of some sort.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Maybe some bear spray or something. I don't know. I've never encountered a bear. I'm a desert boy. I've never encountered anything like that.
The only time I carry any bear spray is if I'm in an area that they really don't like for you to carry a gun.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Other than that, it's not other. I mean, the bear spray. I think it was last year. It's the first time I ever carried it, and mainly it was because I went to an area around a lake, a pretty nice sized lake here in kind of central West Virginia, and I was told that there's a lot of bear activity. And so I just like, okay, my wife's like, you need to take something. So that was the only reason I took it. The other reason is it's really not only good for bear. I mean, what I'm more worried about here sometimes, because we have started to get in some areas, a very large population of coyotes, and I've actually been surrounded by coyotes, and I was like, so that was another reason I carry my sidearm or got the bear spray. So other than that, and actually the majority of the reason why I carry is because of all the people that tell me they've seen mountain lions here, and I've never seen one, and DNR says they're not here. But as many people I talk to have seen them, that's one of the only reasons I carry. I mean, for the longest time, I never carried anything. I just never did.
Yeah,
Even growing up, I never. I mean, just I spent time in the woods by myself, and I never had anything.
yeah, it's almost like a false sense of security because you kind of
Yeah,
feel this is my place. There's nothing going on around here. I've never seen anything.
right.
I was working and I'm a postal employee. So my route is I deliver inside a country club, and it's out in the middle of lava fields and, lava rock and,
Mhm.
kind of towards the edge of town. And occasionally you'll see a coyote running across the golf course. I was delivering mail a couple months ago and I look over and there's a bobcat.
Mhm.
Bobcat just kind of walks up, across the street, I'd say probably about 30, 40 yards from me,
Yeah.
looks at me, keeps on going, you
Yeah.
know? And being from Vegas, when you see coyotes in Vegas or on the outskirts of Vegas, they usually see you and they don't want to have anything to do with you. I mean,
Right.
they're, you know, trying to get out of there as fast as they possibly can. And I've never seen like a pack of them, but
Mhm.
for me, it's kind of hard to wrap my head around how vicious they can be with that
Yep.
pack mentality, and that they would be willing to try to take down a human, you
Yeah.
know?
I don't know why they were doing it, but it's happened a couple of times. They've surrounded. I actually even had one probably 4 or 5 years ago. Me and one of my other sons, because I got four boys. One of my other boys were camping in an area where supposedly this guy was having Bigfoot activity, and my one son went with me, and we're setting up camp, and this is like a 200-acre farm, and we're setting up camp on this farm, and he said, "Hey, Dad," he said, "Here comes a deer." And there's some old logging roads, but it was overgrown. There's pretty decent scrub brush and greenbrier and stuff growing up now. And like, where? And he said, coming down through there. And so we're standing there waiting. I'm standing there waiting for this deer. Well, it wasn't a deer. This was a coyote. It was sneaking into our camp, and this is during broad daylight. So I had my gun, and I didn't even think about pulling it. I just yelled at it and it just took off. And but yeah, that to me, that's one of the scariest things is those things. They tend to do that here.
Right. And that just blows my mind. Cause like I said, when I see them, they see you and they're gone. And it's hard for me to it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that you're there in your camp and that bad boy is hungry enough to try to sneak into your camp.
Yeah,
That blows my mind.
yeah,
So,
they're something else sometimes, man.
uh, so we've talked Bigfoot and we've talked paranormal.
Hmm.
What about, I mean, obviously I'm going to go with UFOs. What about anything like that? Have you ever investigated a UFO sighting? Talked to anybody that's had UFO sightings?
Yeah, I've talked to people that say they've seen strange lights, strange crafts. I'm actually I'm good friends with the MUFON state director here in Fairmont or West Virginia. I mean, he keeps me updated on some cases that he gets when he's able to. I have talked to people that have had, I guess you'd say, alien sightings. One was I don't know if you watched. It's on the YouTube channel. You can go listen to the interview if you want. I don't know if you listened to it or not. The one that says the alien coming to my cabin, or a
I
gray coming to my.
I haven't checked that out yet, but I definitely will.
That is a witness interview. The gentleman, for for whatever reason, decided finally to come forward, and this happened in I believe it was 1967,
Wow.
and he was I think 10 or 11 years old. He told me he was in the southern part of West Virginia. He actually lives maybe 10 miles from me now, but he was in back then. Um, his dad, like most family, a lot of families here, they were coal miners, and Well, a lot of people don't understand, nowadays the coal mining, if you work in the coal mines, it's kind of a decent job now. I mean, it's kind of, it's it pays up. It can be up there sometimes, but back then, like when my grandpa, he was a coal miner. It was, it was a horrible, conditions were horrible. The job was horrible. And so in the southern part of West Virginia, I can't remember the name of the camp. He says it in the video, but there was a camp that was for kids or for families, the kids of families that were they were coal mining families, and they would go there during the summer. And he was at this camp, and he says it in an interview. He said, it was, it was embarrassing, but I was a bedwetter. I wet the bed, and he goes, so when we were in the cabin, I didn't want to go to sleep. I didn't want to sleep. He said I was afraid I was going to wet the bed. He said, I get made fun of. So he's laying in his bunk, and I forget how many people were there. I don't remember if he says it. I mean, student or kids were in there, but there was a counselor in the cabin. So he hears a screen door open on the cabin, and he turns and looks, and he sees this, what he described. And I took a report. I got the pictures he found online to just show me what this thing looked like, and everything describes it. And he describes it as like a 4-foot tall gray alien. And he said it started walking down the aisle, I guess you'd call it, between the rows of bunks. And it started getting closer to where he was at. And he's looking at it. And this counselor, for some reason, stirs in his bunk and like moves. Well, this thing, thinks, I guess, I'm caught. So it turns around, it runs back out of the cabin, hits the screen door, out through the screen door, and and the screen door slams and it's gone. Well, he gets up the next morning and he's in the line for breakfast. He says he's in chow line, and he starts hearing the counselors talking about seeing a craft over the river that same night. And he kept that to himself for all those years. And for some reason, he got a hold of me last year and said, I would like to talk to you about it. And I went to his house and sat down with him, and he shared his story.
And see, that's great that you're like the go-to guy, and that adds a bit, that adds some legitimacy to what you're doing, because now people who haven't talked about things are coming to you to open up. So you're almost like a counselor of sorts,
Yeah.
They feel comfortable enough to talk to you to tell you these stories, and that guy's probably not shared that story with many people because for the fear of ridicule.
Yeah, he told me, I don't remember if he tells me in the interview, but prior to or the interview or after, I can't remember which. He told me he's only talked to a couple people, and I think his wife was the only one.
Right. So, bringing up wives, how does your wife feel about you doing what you do?
Well, here's how
personal if it's just trying to be a generalized question.
No, here's how I put it. I've had people ask me, what is the best piece of evidence, or not evidence, but what's the best tool or piece of equipment or whatever you want to call it that you have for what you do? And I was like, not calling my wife a tool, but my wife is, because
Right.
she's extremely understanding. She's extremely encouraging.
Right.
She, for those people that really know me, a few years ago, I'm not a great big people person, and be honest with you. I'm more of an introvert. I would never have done, before her and I get together, I would never done speaking events. I would never.
Right.
But I mean, I talk to people one-on-one, but to do speaking events and go to these event or like festivals and stuff, I would have never done that. But I don't want to say she pushed me into doing it, but she encouraged me. She goes, people want to talk to you, and you want to do them, and it took me a while to get used to doing some of these speaking events. I would go and I'd have that shake, and I'd sweating to death, and she's right there, just to cheer me on. But that's how, that to me, that's the best thing about it. I mean, and like, I really love her and commend her for it.
She sounds like a keeper, man. Good job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good job. Yeah, I grew up wanting to be a musician, so I'm a drummer. So there's drummers and musicians. They're not the same thing, you know, that joke that goes on
Yeah.
forever. And I was fortunate enough to do a few things where, you know, I got to travel on a tour bus and I got to make a music video, blah 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 blah. So for me, getting on stage and playing in front of people, I can do that all day long. That's
Yeah.
not hard. But then talking to the people
Right.
after the fact, I never really cared for that.
Right.
You know, part of the job is doing it and you know, making people feel welcome and that's okay. But a lot of times I'm just like, man, get me out of here. I just want to go somewhere. I want peace and quiet.
Right.
You know, and so that kind of, you mentioned kind of the same thing. You're an introvert. You're like, I don't like talking to people. I just want to
Right.
do my thing and relax. But you know, it's such a big part of what you do, and what I do is actually talking to people, making them feel comfortable, you know, enough to share these stories with you and these experiences that they've never shared before, or they haven't shared very often just for the fear of ridicule.
Right.
You know, and I commend you for it, for being able to do that, because you're actually helping these people, you know, get that burden off their chest, you know.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't mean that in a way that in a negative way toward when I do talk to people.
Right.
I just don't like I'm not one to be in a bunch of, how do I want to put it?
You don't want to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, I really don't. Most of the time I don't. You know, things I do, like festivals and things I do like that. And when I've done some other things with some projects with some other people, I do it because they're friends and they've asked me. And
Right.
and I really, and it's not because I want to be in the spotlight and not because I want the attention. I just like to do what, if friends want to ask me to do something and I'm able to, I'll do my best to do it.
Okay. Okay. That fair enough. That's a very noble position, and I get it. I mean, you know, when friends ask for help, you help them. That's
Right.
kind of how that is, and you know, they're though your friends are propping you up as well. They're like, hey, Les would be the perfect guy for this situation. Let's bring him in, and that's a big deal, man. You know, that's your friends going, "Man, we trust this guy, you know, and we want this guy. He's a perfect person to help us out and, you know, pass along this information to this group of people."
Mhm.
You know, and kudos on that, man. That's a big deal, dude. That's something to be proud of. You know?
And another reason I like doing it is because I like to hear the stories, and when you hear the stories, it helps you. Like if you've taken other reports or something from when this is just Bigfoot related in general, mostly when you talk to other people, that might help somebody else you've talked to. You can like, hey, yeah, I've had somebody tell me the same thing, and they've had this same experience in this area,
Right.
and I'm able to share that with another person. So it's kind of like more like a not a thing for me, like to it's more like a networking thing to try to help people. Uh, for example, I have a fellow that we've become friends that contacted me here a few months ago, and he told me about his two sightings on his property, and one was a certain color, certain height, and the other one was near his house, was a certain color, certain height. So I talked to him, took the report. Well, just here in June, when we done the West Virginia Bigfoot Festival, I had a gentleman come up and was like, talk to me. He said, "I'd like to share my experiences with you." And I'm like, "Sure." I said, "Sit down. Let's talk about it." And he said this happened in a certain area. And as soon as he said that area, I'm like, "That's the same area where my friend had his encounters. Same general area." Then he started to describe what he saw. He had two different experiences. One was in 21, I think, and one was in 22, or one was in 20 and one was 22, something like that. So he started telling me, describing his two encounters, what they look like, and they fit the same description as this other gentleman.
Wow.
And I was like, can you show me on a map where where you had your sightings? And he's like, so we pulled up the map on my phone, and I knew exactly where my friend lived. And this gentleman showed me the two sightings, the exact locations. One was 3 minutes one way, or 3 miles one way, and one was 4 miles the other way from where my friend had his sightings on his property. So that right there, to me, they especially when they don't know each other, they've never heard of each other. The one gentleman that had his two sightings was traveling through for work, both times he had sightings. So he didn't live in that area. He's never heard anything. And so that gives, to me, both of them validation for to show them that, hey, you're not crazy. This is what you saw, especially when two people not connected in any way can give you the same description of the same two animals,
Right.
Within a 7-mile stretch of road. So that's one reason why I really like to do it. And it's not getting around a bunch of people and so people like, oh yeah, you're so and so. It's I like to hear those stories. I like to talk to those people. And sometimes, when I'm there, if somebody wants to talk to me, let's talk. I've actually, the one time at the Bigfoot Festival, a guy come up and he said, you remember me talking to you online? And I'm like, yeah. He said, you said you talked to me when I got here. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So there's people standing there, and so he kind of walks off, and I was like, I felt bad because I thought he, was thinking I was being rude. And I
Right.
told the other folks that come up to the table, I said, folks, I said, you just got to give me a minute. You got to give me a minute. And I tracked that feller down, and I
Right.
went and talked to him, and we stood and talked for a half hour,
Right.
about his experience, because I gave that man's my word that I would talk to him when he came to see me.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a man's word, that's
Mhm.
what it's all about. So you mentioned animal. What do you think they are? I mean, what's your theory? What do you think they are?
I don't know if I have a theory per se. To me, the easiest answer for anybody is, because it's the easiest explanation, is that they're an animal. They're either an unknown primate, or they're some kind of relic hominid or something. That's the easy answer, and I stick with that kind of teetering, because like I said, that's the easiest answer. But when you have so many people come up to you and say, I had this experience and I've seen this and I've seen they did this, or I've seen the lights, or they had glowing eyes, you have to listen to that.
Right.
And I've been saying that for a long time, and you have to listen to that. Not for the reason that I'm trying to prove that they're a paranormal being. What I'm trying to make sense to myself and maybe help others is to be able to take both sides and maybe separate it if there is a separation there. You know what I mean? These reports here eventually fit another report. Well, maybe what these people are seeing are not what these people over here are seeing. Maybe they're, for some reason, relating what they're seeing to Bigfoot. Maybe because that's what their reference they have in their mind. Maybe that's why. I'm not sure. But eventually, I'm hoping to, which I don't know if I ever will, we'll be able to say, yeah, what people are seeing over here is something completely different. Because I mean, you have people also talk about that they look like, some look like human, some look like apes, some look like this, and so what are people experiencing? Are they just multiple different things? I don't know. I don't really know what they are, to be honest with you. Some of the things that I have taken reports are just tells me that they're an animal,
Right.
or some kind of hominid of some sort.
Right.
But it's that weird stuff, man. That's still there. And to me, if I don't take it, if I don't listen to it, I'm doing myself as an injustice as an investigator,
Right.
because I'm not putting that data in to try to figure something out, and I'm doing that witness an injustice, just saying, yeah, no, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And I don't think it's fair.
No, it's not fair. I mean, you're talking, like you mentioned, the glowing eyes.
Mm-hmm.
People have felt the infrasound,
Mm-hmm.
where they didn't necessarily, they might have heard something, but they just had this overwhelming feeling to turn right around and walk away.
Right.
You've had people see them appear out of a portal. People see them when UFOs are nearby.
Mm-hmm.
People see like the cloaking, almost like the Predator movies.
Right.
There's a million things that go along with it, and then there's people that say, oh, it was running on all fours.
Right.
Then it got up and stood on two legs and walked, and then dropped down and ran again. So there's so many variables about what this thing could be, and like you said, it could be a couple of completely different things.
Yeah.
And it's just, obviously a lot of people have had experiences.
Oh yeah.
Hands down, a lot of people have had experiences.
And-
And you can't discount them for having the experience. A lot of people are full of shit. Sorry. But there's a lot of people that, their stories sound so far-fetched, but they actually had the experience.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. I don't think, even if they shoot one and drag the body out in front for everybody to look at, I still don't think well, let me rephrase that. I think it only explains a small fraction
Right.
of what's going on.
I mean, yeah, me too.
Right. So I did pull a video that you had, and this video is only about 60 seconds long, and it's a video of what appears to be footage of a Bigfoot. So let's check that out real quick, and then maybe you can tell me a little bit more about it. So let's check this. So watching that video, I do have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Number one, obviously, he's out geocaching, so I'm curious about location.
Right.
And if he's out in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody else around, and he's out there looking for one of those geocaches that's like out in the middle of the forest, and not a lot of people find. It's not one where it's like right on the side of the road or something. That's my first question. If location, where he's at, or she, whoever filmed it. And B, it almost, when it's slowed down and it's kind of going back, you're going forward and backwards. The similarity to Patty,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
The similarity is there, with the swinging arm and everything. So, have you spoken with the person that filmed this video, or is this just something you found?
No, this is a well-known video it was posted on YouTube probably, I think it was I'm thinking 2008, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember. It might have been longer than that. I'm trying to remember. But no, nobody's ever gotten contacted I know of with the gentleman. I guess it's the only video he uploaded on that channel. And I know a couple people that's went to the area that's actually near a pretty good sized snow or a ski resort called Snowshoe, and they've actually went to that location and said that that thing is, had to be something legitimate, because they did a height comparison, and it was between a 7 and, I think, like they told me, 7 to 8 feet. So I don't know. To me, it's one of the better pieces of evidence out there for West Virginia as far as video. But yeah, I wish I've tried to contact the poster, and I've not been able to, and I don't know if anybody else has either.
And see, for me, the fact that this is just how I feel. This doesn't mean anything, but this is just my thoughts on it. The fact that he only ever uploaded one video could take it one way or the other.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The one way could be that he faked it, which nobody wants to believe. Come on, and nobody really wants to believe that somebody's going to fake something, right? He either faked it, or it scared him so bad that he put it up, but then he doesn't want to deal with people asking about it. He doesn't want to talk about it, but he's putting it up there just so people can see it.
And you run into that. You watched the Bruno Howl, or the Trent vocalization from Bruno, West Virginia, right? Did you listen to that one?
I do. I have the video. We can play it if you want, but go ahead and talk about it. Then
the lady that recorded that, she did talk to the BFRO, or actual friend of mine that actually investigated it. But other people have tried to contact her, and she just does not want to talk to anybody about it, as far as that video.
All right, well, let's play that video so everybody has an idea of what you're talking about here.
You hear it? See at that time? Clear.
You got water running?
That's wild, man. That's creepy enough during the daytime, but I wouldn't want to hear that at night.
Well, you heard the last couple of times that was really rough sounding, like it was almost a rough.
Right.
That's what I've heard on 2 occasions.
Okay.
Um, it was more of that kind of a howl, but it had a kind of coarseness to it. One was in Tucker County, and one was in can't remember what county Dobrin is. I think I remember if it's Randolph County or not. But the one in Tucker County, we were there. It was me, my friend Daniel, my son, his buddy, and we were just hanging out around a campfire. We was there to do our thing, but we didn't have anything going. We was getting ready to sit down and eat and whatever, just sitting around a campfire, and we heard that come across like over like across this swampy area, and like holy cow, And then coyotes everywhere just went nuts, and
Right.
that was the first time I actually heard it.
Did you go into like what was running through your head at that point?
Oh, I was like, I jumped up and was like, just trying to wait to see if it's going to do it again. My friend Daniel had his parabolic mic. We grabbed night vision to see if we could see anything in the area. But I don't know how far it was away. But my friend Daniel and my son believe they saw something actually run across the gravel road that was nearby,
Oh, wow.
probably about 150, 200 yards away. They weren't sure, but the next day I got up and went in the area. We heard the sound. My friend Daniel had to go home. Well, he went hiking around a little bit first, and he come across a couple things that were interesting. An interesting rock stack. And when he got back, I told my son, I was like, I'm gonna go over to in the area where we heard that noise or that howl last night. And he's like, I'll go with you. I said, no. I said, we don't have the best service here. You stay here. That way you can follow. You have no service. You follow me on the phone with GPS and stuff.
Right.
I said, if I get in trouble, we'll do the normal thing, and I'll shoot in the air, and just follow me, follow on the GPS, and that way you guys can come find me or whatever. Well, I go across where we was at. We're staying in this little campsite, and this is in a national forest area, and it's just a little tiny gravel road. Then you got pine trees, and you have what they call peat bogs, like these blister swamps, and they're in some of the higher plains here, they're in the mountains, but we have some plateau and plains, I guess you'd call them. And there's these peat bogs, and you cross them, and it's squishy. I mean, it's probably 2 feet deep, and it's like this heavy moss. So you go across that, and you go across this little creek, and then you cross another peat bog. Then you get into a laurel thicket. You go through it, and then you go up a hill, and you're into the hardwood. And I got over in there, and I walked up, and I find the rock stack my buddy Daniel was talking about is a pretty interesting rock stack. And we're not talking these little rock stacks that are like, foot tall that you find along creeks that people will actually build. I'm talking massive, or as far as the rocks. The bottom rock had to be every bit 300 or 400 pounds, maybe. And then it got smaller and it stood probably 4 foot tall. And could somebody have made it? Yeah. But why would anybody go through that?
Right.
That much work to get across there to build this rock stack over there. And then after I found it, I went over and found another rock that was about a softball or soccer ball size, and it looked like it had been picked up and bashed on this boulder, and it was just laying there crumbled. Like I tell people, I don't know if it's that they were either one of those are Bigfoot related, but it was interesting. We heard that howl. I found my first cast in the same area, or my first print in the same area. There's been some, I guess you'd say, maybe historical type sightings that go back as far as like the 1960s in that area, from the 60s all the way up to present day.
Right.
And then we hear that howl. So it was pretty awesome.
And you keep going out there.
Yep. Absolutely.
When you heard the howl, did you feel threatened at all?
No, I felt excited, man. I just like, this is awesome. I can't wait to wait in the morning to get across there, because I wasn't going to do it at nighttime. I mean, not because I was afraid. I just knew that the terrain, it had been painted.
Right.
But I eventually went back. I did go across it at nighttime when I was there with Alex. I don't know if you know Alex Petikoff from Small Town
Right.
Monsters. Well, Small Town Monsters has they have a production company, and they do like some documentaries and stuff.
Yeah, I
And
love their stuff. I probably know the name and probably would recognize the face if I've seen him in one of the documentaries, but I do like their work. I'm getting my wife into watching them too. We've watched The Dog Man. We've watched some of the earlier ones. So,
well, he does that series Beyond the Trail. It's on their YouTube channel.
Okay.
So he come down and we went over. He hung out for a couple of days, and we went over there during the night, trying to get over to where, because I had marked it. It was 2 years prior. I had marked it with marking tape where I could get up into the hardwood, and it had grown up so much we couldn't find it at night, and we couldn't get through the thicket. And so we was out there wandering around in the night in the peat bog, and then eventually the next day we did find it and got up here, and that's where, and you can see it in the if you go watch that one, the Wild Man of West Virginia or something. There's two of them.
Okay.
If you watch them, you'll see the rock stack and stuff that I found. It's still there.
Yeah, I'll actually. Wife's out of town, so I've got time tonight. Maybe I'll throw that bad boy on and check it out. I can't. I think I've started to watch it or I've finished it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But
there's two of them that he did. I'm trying to remember. But it says something about Wild Man, West Virginia, or something like that. And there's a 2-part, and it's in one of those. I can't remember which one it was. Either first part or second part. I don't remember.
Okay, I'll check it out. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to watching that again and checking that out. So I did want to play. You had sent me the link. I had asked you for a video that's kind of like a best of type thing, kind of encapsulates everything on your channel. And I mean, the 131 videos, that's a lot, man. I'm fighting to get 10. But I want to play this video. This will kind of give you a chance if like you want to refresh your drink or whatever. We got about another 10, 15 minutes. So let me play this video real quick, kind of give you a chance to get a breather. And I wanted everybody to see some of the content on your channel. So let me get this in here real quick. All right. So I know that a lot of people, or some people, let me rephrase that. Some people watching that video and they see the trees falling on top of each other and the structures and
Mhm.
everything. A lot of people who don't have a base of reference for that might just think that some of those structures like were trees and the trees just naturally fell over and fell in that configuration. When you find stuff like that or found those particular structures, I mean, do you think that there's a way that that could have been the case, or was it maybe we don't see it in the video that it's so obvious that those trees came from someplace else and were put there on purpose?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to look at that and it's like, there's nothing there, there's nothing there. I don't claim that that any of the tree structures are actually Bigfoot related. I really don't
Right.
feel that I can because I've never seen one. I never haven't seen it built. The only thing I can say is now the one that's in that you see is the larger one that's in the field. I documented that. Mainly what I documented that for is to show people that that looks like what people call structure, and it is a structure. But I don't believe it's. I don't think believe it's Bigfoot related. Um, I believe it was probably more man-made, probably as a hunting blind. The one, however, the one that you see that it looks like a big X between two trees,
Right.
there's a whole story to that one. You'll see it closer to the end there. You'll see like two casts that are not really great. I call them partials. The impression was there. There was in like this muddy, black, nasty substrate.
Right.
Decaying material. I casted them. Um, then while they were drying, where I got the water for it was in a creek right beside them. I got the water from them or from that creek, casted the prints, hiked about a half a mile or so back up along the creek, all the way up into the valley, half mile or maybe a little bit farther. I'm not sure. Um, and then turned to the right, veered off probably 15, 20 yards, somewhere 30, 40 feet, or 40, 50 feet somewhere, and come back down. And what I was doing is I was looking for more of that substrate that would have possible tracks in it.
Right.
Well, I found a couple spots, and I'm standing at the second spot, and I hear something on the bank. There was a bank went up, and there was rocks, and it went from like a pine forest up into hardwood, and it's kind of a weird area. But I hear something up in the laurel thicket and the hardwood, and I turn around, and when I turned, whatever was up there took off running down off through the woods. I could hear it going through the woods. I to this day I don't know if it was a deer. It sounded bigger than a deer. It could have been a bear, very possibly, or something else. I don't know. So when I got back, I pulled those casts. I took them home, and I'm like, I want to go back. I want to check that area out again. I went back the following weekend, and the spot where I got the water, and the same spot where I crossed the creek to get on the far side of it to hike up the valley. Right at that spot is where that X is. It's in between two trees, and it wasn't there the previous week. Nobody knew I was there. Nobody knew I was coming back. So I just thought they were interesting. I mean, why would it be there? So I documented it, and especially finding what I consider partial prints. Not only did I find that, but if you watch it, in one part here at the end, there's a log. It has like this little arrangement that almost looks like it looks like a letter A to me.
Right.
That was there. That was actually right beside where one of the prints, where I found one of the partial prints. Some people call those glyphs. I don't know what it was from, but it wasn't there the week before. A couple of the other ones, yes, it could be natural. Very good. I just like to document what I find. The one there, I can't show you without the video, but it's a large one, has some bigger sticks in it. I documented that one because there was a couple of them that were upside down, going the other
Oh,
way, and instead of up, they were going down. So that's why I documented those. The one tree break you see in there is in the same area where I found the prints in the X. That's the really only tree break that I actually show anybody, because the rest of them I can pretty much say they're probably natural. The
right.
reason I find that one intriguing because it's in that area, and 2, it had cover. Most of the tree breaks you'll find in our area, there's nothing above them, so most likely it's been storm load or something like that. It broke it off.
Right.
So, and then the cast you see at the beginning with the rubbing, that was in a pine forest. Yeah, it was in pine duff. It was pretty neat, a bunch of needles.
Right.
Found it in 2020. When you go into the pine forest, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you'll never find anything," But what you need to look for is, Mason, please don't. What you need to look for is, you don't look for just regular impressions. You have to look for that change in material.
Right.
When something stirs that up, it goes from that light brown gray color to like a blackish color.
Right.
So I seen this ridge, underneath this tree, and we had a big snowstorm like prior to this. This was in 2020, and then we had like 3 or 4 days that was 70 to 75 degrees here in January. So the snow melted off, and I think that was the only reason that track survived. It was an older track. It was under that tree, and I decided to cast it. There was not much of a detail that you could tell, and I was like talking to a friend on the phone. He said, "Cast it anyway." So I casted it, sitting here at my desk, and I'm trying to see. I can see the heel and toes and stuff. I'm like, how can I get this to pop out? And that's when I come up with, doing the rubbing. I remember I was like, I remember being in kindergarten, and you go out and get the leaves and you put them under paper and you did rubbing. And that's what I did. And I started doing that. And from all I know, I'm the only one that does that. I've never had anybody else show me they've done it. And I've done it with every cast that which I don't have a bunch of casts. I really don't. The one at the end there, I don't know why I put that in there. I forgot to put a heading there. That is a human print for example is what it's for. Because
Right.
there's one found in the lake, and I don't know why I didn't put a heading. But when it's at the museum, and I got it labeled a human print. But yeah, that's why I do the rubbings and stuff like that, and why. But this is I don't know if you can see this on your camera, but this is a copy. It's an actual 3D printed copy of the one I found.
Oh, wow.
You see the heel there,
Uh-huh.
and there are the toes.
Right.
That's the one you see with the rubbing. There's the whole foot. Right, it goes from here. Like here's it's backwards. Here's the heel. That's it.
Wow.
That's just a copy of the original cast.
Well, I can't imagine you have a whole lot of casts, because you usually end up leaving them with the people.
No, it's just not.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I mean, there's other people to tell you, you just don't find them that much. You
Right.
just don't find a lot of them.
Well, and a lot of people out there, really, they could probably walk right by one and not notice it. But
Right.
you're out there more and more, and so what you're looking for. So you're going to come across, the chances of you coming across one is a little higher than somebody that doesn't really know what they're looking for and could walk right past one and have no idea. You're out there and you can read the area and go, okay, this is obviously a game trail, so we can follow this, or
Right.
whatever. All right, this material, we're more than likely going to find a print here.
Mm.
So you've got your channel on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
which you've got, it's WV Cryptids and Strange Encounters. People
Right.
can find on YouTube. Obviously, they can find you on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any appearances or anything coming up?
Yeah, I have Central PA. Oh, I forget what it's called now. Sorry, Gwen. I'm doing one August the 3rd in Pennsylvania, then another one September 28th and 29th in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I think that's it this year, because I didn't take on a bunch of them this year.
Okay. Well, if you want to send me a link to those, I'll post them up. I don't know if I really have a lot of people in Pennsylvania, but at least get them out there for you. Try to help you a little bit. And, you don't really need my help, obviously, but, just put them up there so people kind of have an idea of how busy you are. And as we wrap this up, man, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I know you've got your boy out there, and you probably missed dinner because of me. And
I'm good. I'm all good.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking the time, and Les, it was awesome. I hope you had a good time. And
Absolutely, yeah.
if you want to do this again, man, we can get into some more stories and stuff. I'd love to have you again at some point.
Absolutely. I just, would just leave with everybody's like, if you get out and do it, get out and do it, have a good time. Be careful, but
Right.
Do your due diligence, man. Just don't jump on everything being Bigfoot. Do your due diligence and
Fair enough.
And investigate and research the proper way.
I appreciate you, Les. You take care, man. All the love to your boy. Get him back out there. That's the stuff he's going to remember. Out there walking around with Pops. So,
yep.
Les, you have a good night, man. Thank you again, and we'll chat soon, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Have a good night.
Bye.
Take care. There we go, Les Odell. Man, that was awesome. He's such a good dude. Such a nice guy. Takes his son out there, man. I can't stress how awesome I think that is that he takes his boy out there. So Les is going to send me some links to some stuff he's got going on. I'll make sure to post that up. Again, you can follow us on Facebook, Earmod Podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Earmod Podcast, Rumble, Earmod Podcast, Instagram, Earmod Podcast, Twitter, Earmod Podcast. Follow us on there. I'll post all kinds of stuff. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll chat with you guys soon, man. Look forward to the next episode. Take care.